Now, with recently added Assistance API on Azure OpenAI, you can now create your own complex copilots that not only generate text, but also it will let you automatically and intelligently trigger your functions, your codes, or your even APIs with even leveraging your own any type of data. Then, let's go.
Before we start, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will get notified for the next video. Thank you. Alright, let's talk about what is Azure OpenAI Assistance API. Well, this just added to Azure OpenAI a couple of days ago, I believe, and the time you're watching this video and recording this video, it's in preview. But what is Assistant API? I mean, what is the proposed value of Assistant API? So technically, when you want to create LLM applications and dealing with large language models and LLM APIs like OpenAI API here, these APIs, they're stateless. That means they don't have sort of a memory to store all the chat history and stuff. And this is a challenge. So you have to, as a developer, manage the threads, the chat history, create a memory, and sort of include anything needed to perceive that thread of communication to LLM. But with this assistance API, it is actually stateful. Not only it is stateful, but also it will let you to connect your LLM to other type of execution of tasks that you want to do. Right now, a simple LLM just can answer a question or generate a text here for us. But what I'm gonna do, I wanna create an application that not only can generate text for me, answer my questions, but also let me trigger some other functions, some codes, and some APIs, and even load some files, data sets. So it's sort of beyond an LLM text generation use case. So let's see how we can do so. If I click on Assistance API, I'm gonna show you that in UI for learning purpose, but this is definitely doable through code as well. By the way, there are certain specific regions that you can have this Assistant API. I'm in East US2 region, so this is currently available there. That's why I have my Azure OpenAI service here. If I click on Assistant API, you'll see I can create a new one. If you click on new, you have to give it a name. Let's say I want to create an assistant. As you just saw, I created one before, but I'm going to create another one, housing assistant. So what I'm gonna do, I want to create a housing assistant, which is a virtual assistant here using GPT-4, as you can see, to answer questions about some houses, listed houses. And I'm gonna use the Boston housing list dataset from Scikit-Learn. And when I'm interested to a particular house, I want to let the chatbot connect me to an agent. So that's, you can see that I'm executing a task. That's why I need Assistant API here. So what's the instruction? I'm gonna say that you are a helpful assistant, blah blah blah, that do this and that. So I've already created that. I'm not going to create, but I'm gonna tell you what these boxes are. Now the deployment, the model that I'm gonna use for this chatbot is GPT-4. And what is function? So functions are the definition of your APIs, codes, anything that you want your LLM decide if we need that function to get triggered or not. So let me give you an example. If I click on add function, Azure OpenAI already give you two examples. For example, the one that get a stock price. So this is how you define a definition for your function. So LLM will decide, do we need to call this function or not? For example, at the middle of the chatbot, if LLM understand that, oh, I need to get a stock price because of the user question, so it will check out the function definition, and based on the description of the function that I have here, it will understand that, okay, I need to call this function. And what are the inputs of this function? These are actually defined here. For example, one type is a symbol, which is, I think, the company name. Let's say Microsoft stock price MSFT, and that's in a string. And what is that input? This is the stock symbol, and it is required. How about another one? Get weather. The same thing. There's a description for that, and there are some bunch of inputs that needed for this function, which is the location of the place that we're gonna get the weather, And there is something else, unit, which is Fahrenheit or centigrade, Celsius, sorry. So now this is the way that we define the function, but you might question me that, okay, where is the Python code that does actually get the weather data, or where is the Python code that received the stock price? Those Python code stuff are something that you need to develop by yourself, or of course you can use GPT models to generate code for you. But here the assumption is that you already have a function that get the stock price in Python code. This is just a definition. And LLM just need the definition of your function to tell that, hey, I need to trigger this function or not. And based on that answer of LLM, your Python code gonna get triggered. Okay, so for this housing assistant, I created a new one. I'm gonna show you. So let me go to the one that I created, housing assistant. You will see that this is a name. You are a helpful analytics assistant that analyzes housing data set. And there you go. I have a new function created. Let me show you what it is. So this function is when the chatbot will decide that the user want to contact to an agent and talk to an agent, this function should get triggered. This is the description I have defined. And what are the inputs to call this function to contact an agent? One of them is RM, which is the average number of rooms for that house. That should be defined by the user, and age of the house. These are just an example, so like it can be anything. So as long as the chatbot knows this and the user say, hey, connect me to your agent, these functions should get triggered and decided to get triggered by LLM. And we're gonna check that out. And both of them are required as an input. So let me save it. And nice thing here added here is code interpreter. So when I enable this, on backend, Microsoft will provision a sandbox of Python environment, so any code generated by LLM can get executed under that Python environment. So I want to enable that, and this is also a new feature added here. And files, of course, I want to give the list of my houses to this assistant. And let me show you first how my data set look like. Let me open up my Boston houses. There you go, it's on the other screen. So these are list of houses with different information about, for example, actually I have a text file which is the metadata information about these columns. For example, as you saw, age is the not necessarily the age of the house, but RM is the average number of rooms per dwelling. So I want to give this text file and this CSV file, both of them, to my assistant API to make sure when it works as a housing assistant, it has access to these data sets. So I click on add files, upload. The first one is my Boston houses. There you go. I just uploaded. Okay, it's gonna take me a couple of seconds. There you go. And I want to also add the text file that I showed you, which is here, data set attribution. I'm going to click on upload. All right, as you can see, both files are added, and I believe my assistant API is ready to get triggered. So I'm going to click on save, and making sure that our LLM can access, or our assistant, I would say, can access to these files, and the code interpreter, which is a Python environment, is working, that can run the codes, not just generating them. Let's actually do something. I want to ask that, hey, do some experimentation analysis on this data set. I want to say do EDA on housing data. EDA stands for experimentary data analysis, right? So no question. Let's see what it's gonna perform. Alright, as you can see, it beautifully did some experimental data analysis on my data, some information about the distribution of the features that I have in that CSV file that we just uploaded, and even created some plots. So there's certainly a code got executed to generate this. That's how this code interpreter is working, and there's a Python sandbox behind this. To prove that, I'm gonna ask, show me the Python code you used for this. Let me fix the typo. There you go. Let's check it out. And here we are. This is the Python code that got generated on backend, and it created those plots for me and all the information that we saw as an answer. So now it has access to my data. It can generate and execute Python codes. Now I want to ask some follow-up questions. Let's say I'm the one interested to get some houses listed, for example, right? So I want to see what is the newest listed house in this data set by age. So let me ask. And here it is. It went ahead and figured out the newest data set or house listed by age. And it says here's the rest of the information about that particular listing that is included inside the data set. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, oh, actually I'm very interested in this house, so connect me to an agent. This is the time I'm gonna check if my calling agent function works or not. And as you remember, for calling an agent, we need to know the age of that house and the average number of rooms, right, which are all here. So I expect that this LLM should know the inputs needed to call my contact agent function, and it should understand that here there is a need for calling an agent. So let's give it a try. Here's my question. I am interested in this listing. Connect me to an agent. Let's check this out. There you go. It understood that, okay, this is the time I need to call this function. And remember, this function has two inputs. One is number of bedrooms and age. It also automatically captured those from the chat history. And now, if I have a Python code, let's say, that send an email or reveal a phone number or something on backend, I can do that because the output of my LLM can trigger another Python code to contact an agent. All right, so what we did, it was in Playground, right? And you might say that, MG, I want to code this. I don't want to come to this UI and do this stuff, right? That's correct. So because I have saved this assistant, I can call this through code, and I can even create all the stuff that I did through code as well. In order to show you, here are some examples that I got from Microsoft Link, and I'm going to add that to the Discord channel on the reference sections. And the Discord channel link is added to the video description below. Go there, and when you open the Discord channel, there's a reference section on the left. So you click on it, you will see the link of this notebook. Here's an example that you want to create an assistant that help manage wind turbine farm. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I want to upload some files and create some assistants. So you simply need to put your credentials, connect into your Azure OpenAI, like key endpoints, and then have your client created. You need to make sure you have the code interpreter enabled to have that Python sandbox to execute the codes. And then this is how you upload your files, as I did manually in the UI, but you do that through code. So it is referring to a folder called data, which is here, and as you can see, the turbine CSV file is here. So this part of code will upload that to the assistant. And of course, you need an instruction for your assistant, as we did for housing assistant. This is for portfolio management assistant. Some random explanations there. And that's it. This part of the code will just send the message in case there's a text or image needed to get displayed. That's how it should work. And that part is checking if, for example, the chat got expired, canceled. It is checking some what ifs. And lastly, this is gonna be the one that processed the message and sent to the API. Here are some questions that you can ask, for example. So I didn't run this code, just wanted to high level walk through on this is also doable from the code perspective. If you're interested to do from code, this is, I think, a good, very hello world example of dealing with API assistant in Azure OpenAI. And that was all about this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
To get value of anything, you need to sacrifice. Did you know that the hard thing and the right thing are usually the same? Easy doesn't come into a grown-up life. Dream big, my friends, believe in yourself, and take action. Till next video.